The mission of how I started podcasting and started Special Chronicles is giving respect and voice to those of us with special needs. I became an athlete leader of Special Olympics Illinois, and when I recorded the audio of the speeches that I was given and putting those up as podcasts, I soon received messages of encouragement, and I learned that it was a powerful platform and really helping to make a difference in people's lives. 12 years ago, I didn't expect that anybody would want to even listen to me. We have over 42,316 listeners per month. It's a humbling experience. I'm really grateful to make a difference in other people's lives. Shannon Maher, recruitment programs specialist at Exelon and president of the Exelon Employee Resource Group enabled Exelon Network for awareness and benefiting leaders and employees about disabilities, stops by the podcast to continue our new season of the ComEd EnergyForce podcast series in celebration of the 10th anniversary of the EnergyForce program. Episode 423 of the Special Chronicles show starts right now on SpecialChronicles.com.
This is Special Chronicles, giving respect and a voice to people with special needs.
Podcasting since 2008. This is the show where we're broadcasting disability stories from an insider's perspective, and we are giving a voice to people with special needs. This is your weekly guide to find and joy, acceptance, and inclusion.
I shudder thinking how the world can be so cruel. I lend my voice to those who can't. It's time we try, it's time we care, it's time we stand. It starts with a voice.
Welcome back to the Special Chronicles show. My name is Daniel, founder of Special Chronicles and a Southern Shriver International Global Messenger with Special Olympics. And on this series, I should add a ComEd EnergyForce ambassador. Welcome back to this is episode 423 of the Special Chronicles show right here on SpecialChronicles.com. So good to be back behind the mic with my tea that I have here. We've got some water down here, and excited to be back behind the mic. Right off the bat, I want to just begin by letting you know that this episode is made possible thanks to listeners like you at the $250 gift level to this podcast. Tim Shriver will send you a free autographed copy of his new book, The Call to Unite, Voices of Hope and Awakening. All you have to do to make the $250 gift is simply go to SpecialChronicles.com/give or text give 250 to 833-953-2598. All the links to donate are in the description below. And it really goes a long way to continue to be broadcasting and podcasting on SpecialChronicles.com. I also want to just mention that this series and this whole podcast is presented by our partner ComEd. SpecialChronicles.com/ComEd is where you can get links and find more information about the ComEd EnergyForce Ambassador Program, and it really goes a long way. And with that, we're going to go ahead and kick off this episode. Our guest on the Special Chronicles podcast this week is Shannon Maher. I should have asked how to pronounce her last name, but we'll ask her in the introduction. Shannon is the recruiting programs specialist at Exelon and president of the Exelon Employee Resource Group enabled, which stands for Exelon Network for Awareness and Benefiting Leaders and Employees about Disabilities. Please put your, just imagine, Shannon, who's backstage, imagine when you come on that we have a virtual audience, an audience of all of our thousands of podcast listeners that are going to applaud for you. So welcome to the Special Chronicles show, Shannon.
Thank you, Daniel. I'm excited to be here with you.
Awesome. And I'm glad you waited until after all of our podcast listener friends stopped applauding, because some people talk over applause, which I mean, I feel like if we were actually doing this in person in front of a live studio audience, you probably wouldn't talk over applause. So I don't know what the difference between real applause is and sound effect applause is.
Yeah.
So with that, we folks got connected because this is our at Special Chronicles. This is our 4th year with the ComEd EnergyForce Program, and I think we both got connected. So 2018 was our first official year, and we at that time we weren't involved with the Abilities Expo, and we were only involved with the Abilities Expo the Abilities Expo that year, not to get confused with the big Abilities Expo that everybody knows, but the Abilities Expo that your Employee Resource Group did in 2019 and 2020 before the world shut down. And I only know that because on our SpecialChronicles.com/EnergyForce podcast series, we actually have chronicled. Get it? Chronicled. We have chronicled our entire partnership with ComEd, including
the expo.
The expos. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So that's how I know the kind of the timeline of because we have chronicled the entire thing. And so with that, I believe that was when we first met, but tell us a little share with us about when we first met, as well as introducing yourself to our listeners and your connection to our disability community and your role at the ComEd Exelon Company.
Sure. Yeah. So we did meet as a result of the Abilities Expo. That is with my role as president of Enabled. Our Abilities Expo is kind of a smaller take on the larger event that happens nationwide, providing resources and vendor connections along with organizations related to disability information, education, and resources relating to caretakers and individuals with disabilities. So that was one of our last events that we had in person in February of 2020, and we hope to be back next year. But we met you as part of that through, I think you were representing Special Chronicles / Special Olympics at the time. So excited to be a part of this today. But I've been an employee of ComEd Exelon for 7 years, and in my role as a recruiting program specialist, I mainly oversee recruitment for our Drexel Co-op and ComEd engineering intern programs. And then I also have a special passion for implementing our recruiting programs and pipeline for our talent with disabilities. So I'm excited to be here today.
Awesome. And I know that this next topic in the show notes that I have is related to the ComEd EnergyForce Program. Well, podcast listeners, if you just listen to us, go check out the video on YouTube or Facebook or Twitter Live, and you'll see what I'm wearing, or you'll see the logo that we have on the screen. But the second logo, not the Special Chronicles logo. I think that was obvious, but I know you are mostly involved in, which is how we met, as you just said. You're mostly involved with the Enabled, the Employee Resource Group at Exelon ComEd. So tell us, I guess, from your perspective, what the ComEd EnergyForce Program is, and to kind of tie it in with a little bit more about your role and the Employee Resource Group. I guess how the for first, what the ComEd EnergyForce Program is, and then share with us how the Employee Resource Group Enabled, how that supports and is connected to the ComEd EnergyForce Program, which we say it on every episode for the past 4 years now, but it's the nation's first energy efficiency program taught by people with disabilities. So how is the Enabled Employee Resource Group at Exelon ComEd and your role connected to the ComEd EnergyForce Program?
Yeah. So the EnergyForce program is just really important to the mission of our company, getting out in the community, obviously pre-COVID, to talk about energy savings and energy efficiency practices that you can maintain in the community. And we formalized this organization, or this partnership called EnergyForce Ambassadors, to provide people with different disabilities an opportunity to train to become a volunteer representative of the company, to teach the community about energy savings, energy efficiency. And it's just really great that we can, as a company, exemplify our commitment to diversity, equity, and inclusion as it relates to people with disabilities in this way, as well as with Enabled. Our mission is to provide resources, education, advocacy for people with disabilities and their families. So I think this directly relates to our Enabled mission, as well as Exelon's mission as a whole, to be connected to the community, especially to people with disabilities. That really transcends every diversity group and demographic there is. You can enter the disability community at any time in your life, and you probably know somebody with a disability if you're not disabled yourself, or possibly care for someone with a disability. So I think it relates to a lot of people out there, and definitely is central to the mission of our company.
Awesome. And wanted to also just point out, you definitely said that a lot of what we do as ComEd EnergyForce Ambassadors is pre-COVID with the 12 events, but now I want to kind of add on to what you said, and now during COVID, and I guess now a year and a month later, we're still in COVID. We're still in this global pandemic, even with getting vaccines now, and we're still wearing masks and all the COVID stuff that we're doing. We're now doing, as opposed to 12 events, we moved to doing 10 and really virtual engagements, and which is kind of what we've been doing as SpecialChronicles now. This is the 13th year of podcasting, 13th year that SpecialChronicles and has been around, and that I've been podcasting and really doing virtual engagements now for a while. But yeah, I want to throw there that even with virtual engagements, we're still reaching out to the public in some creative ways, not only doing videos and podcasts like we're doing today, but there's been some other, and I don't have the list in front of me, but there's been some other ambassadors have done some creative engagements. Have you guys with Enabled? But I know we haven't been able to have the abilities, Enabled's Abilities Expo this year, but have you guys done any virtual engagements?
Yeah, so I think our employee resource group, along with other organizations, and have had to pivot to virtual. So we've done a lot virtually. We connect to Exelon's volunteer database called Powering Communities, and we feature virtual donate or volunteer for an organization that's posted through Exelon Powering Communities. We've sent cards to nursing homes and hospitals, submitted donations to food pantries through Amazon, and really stepped up our virtual efforts, as well as we have transitioned a lot of our events to do virtual panel style events. For October being National Disability Employment Awareness Month, it was really important for us to feature a big event during I think it was 6 panelists total from the disability community. You were included, representing EnergyForce ambassadors, as well as people from ADA 25 Advancing Leadership, which is a leadership cohort for Chicagoland residents. with disabilities who get selected to be a part of an immersive leadership program, as well as Becky from Disability In, who is a employment partner that we partner with for disability recruitment. So that was a great way to connect to the community virtually, and that received positive feedback. As well as recently we've been doing events such as we did a virtual burnout event, which provided stress relief tactics, and was presented to our group by a professional on how to avoid burnout and how to be productive virtually, as well as we recently, just last week, did a virtual event on desk exercises that you can do at your desk virtually. So all of those have received positive engagement, and I think really our membership is looking to connect to the employee database, the employees virtually, and feel like they're the company culture, even though we're all, separate in our homes virtually from our own workspaces. But connecting through those separate events has kind of been what has been keeping us going through this virtual period.
Awesome. We've got a few minutes before we want to take a sponsor break. But first, tell us briefly, explain to us a little bit about the Exelon Employee Resource Group enabled, and the which once again for our listeners who are just tuning in, our guest is Shannon Maher, the president of the enabled Exelon Employee Resource Group, that stands for Exelon Network for awareness, benefiting leaders and employees about disabilities. So explain to us a little, just briefly about the enabled group and the how and why, a little bit about the history of how the history on how and why the Exelon Employee Resource Group enabled got started, and what kept it going for so long.
Sure. Enabled was founded as an employee resource group. We're one of 10 employee resource groups company-wide throughout Exelon, and we have multiple chapters across the enterprise. I'm the president of Enabled Chicago, and Enabled is a resource group dedicated to advancing disability inclusion as it relates to education, advocacy, ensuring resources for people with disabilities and their families, as well as providing networking events, recruitment opportunities, and just engagement with one another, and learning from each other on, what we've done as far as disability events or education awareness. And we have an executive sponsor, Joe Turpick. He's the senior vice president of Exelon, the Exelon Finance Group, and he's been central in driving our mission and vision throughout the company, and really being a great support for Enabled Chicago and Enabled across the company, as really a true champion of our mission throughout the organization. He helped us implement a lot of our goals in 2020 become a reality. So it's great to have a company partner like him who's driving, these small goals of an employee resource group across the company, and really making, our goals and dreams a reality company-wide, which is great, seeing as Exelon is, a large organization, and we really feel like we're making an impact with our recruitment and just sharing our resources across the company.
Awesome. We've got just about 2 minutes before we're going to take our first break. And once again, our guest is Shannon Maher, president of the Exelon Employee Resource Group Enabled, and recruiting program specialist at Exelon. And when we come back from the break, I just want to mention that we will get into a little bit more about the Abilities Expo that you mentioned at the top of the program.
Yep.
And a little bit more about our involvement at Special Chronicles, as well as a little bit more about your enabled events. You mentioned one of those virtual panel for National Disability Employment Awareness Month, but we'll get into a little bit more about that, as well as the future vision and a connection that we both share with Disability In. All that's coming up after the break right here on SpecialChronicles.com. And before we get to that break, I want to just mention to our listeners that once again, at the $250 gift level to this podcast, Tim Shriver will send you a free autographed copy of his new book, The Call to Unite, Voices of Hope and Awakening. Once again, to make the $250 gift to this podcast, you can simply go to SpecialChronicles.com/give. That's SpecialChronicles.com/give, or text GIVE. You can grab your phone. I'm sure you all are listening on your phone right now. Maybe, I don't know. Anyways, text GIVE 250 to 833-953-2598. That's text GIVE 250 to 833-953-2598. Or simply just go to SpecialChronicles.com/give to make that $250 gift. And then Tim Shriver will send you a free autographed copy of his new book, The Call to Unite, Voices of Hope and Awakening. Our guest is Shannon Maher, president of the Enabled Group. We will be right back on SpecialChronicles.com after the break. Support for Special Chronicles comes from listeners like you. As an independent public media podcast, Special Chronicles will always be there for you. Now we're asking you to be there for us. As a nonprofit independent media organization, we can only make programs like Special Chronicles with listener support. Our programs provide weekly, candid, honest, and inspiring conversations about the people with disabilities community that creates awareness, support, and advocacy within each week's episode. Listeners tell us our shows are an enjoyable and necessary podcast for the intellectual and developmental disability community and everyone else who is able to listen to stories about life from a different angle. Please, if you and your family love our weekly podcast, make a one-time, monthly, or annual gift of thanks today. Support this podcast at SpecialChronicles.com/give. That's SpecialChronicles.com/give. Support for Special Chronicles comes from ComEd. Special Chronicles is proud to partner with the ComEd EnergyForce Ambassador Program. The EnergyForce is the country's first energy efficiency education program designed for and taught by people with disabilities. ComEd is powering lives, and really is powering us here at Special Chronicles to keep the lights on and our technology is powered on. As ComEd powers the lives of us, they're literally giving a voice to people with special needs. We thank ComEd for the generous support of our mission at Special Chronicles. Learn more at SpecialChronicles.com/ComEd. That's Special Chronicles.
Hi, my name is Lisa Noble, and I'm a ComEd EnergyForce Ambassador and an athlete with Special Olympics Illinois.
Hi, my name is Daniel Spakowski, and I also am a ComEd EnergyForce Ambassador and founder of a company called Special Chronicles.
The ComEd EnergyForce Program is a program that hires people with disabilities to teach the public how to save energy and money.
It's the country's first energy efficiency program of its kind.
Saving energy is especially important while everyone is at home due to COVID-19. We're using more electricity than ever before. Just think about how many more times you are opening the refrigerator door these days.
And while the economy is stressed, it's more critical than ever to save money where we can. Following these tips can save energy and money in this time of COVID-19.
Wash your clothes in cold water and use the dryer sparingly.
Your dryer can take up to 7 times more energy than the washer.
Turn off and unplug any electrical devices or power strips you are not using.
Electrical devices can continue to zap power even when turned off if they're still plugged in. We call them vampire devices.
Use LED bulbs.
They use 25% less energy than incandescent bulbs and last up to 25 times longer, saving you lots of money over time.
Keep your refrigerator between 35 and 38 degrees.
And be sure to use Energy Star appliances.
And last but not least, check out ComEd.com/home savings for more tips and rebates.
Lisa and I would like to thank you for taking the time to listen to us today.
Remember, we are all in this together.
Stay healthy.
And stay safe.
Bye.
COVID-19, better known as coronavirus, has spread throughout the world. There are a few ways to help lower the spread of this respiratory disease. Wash your hands. Avoid touching your face, including mouth, nose, and eyes. Cover your coughs and sneezes. Monitor your symptoms and consult with your doctor. Stay at home and away from other sick people except for medical care. Clean and disinfect high-touch surfaces. For more information, please visit cdc.gov/COVID-19. Thank
We're
you.
not just athletes.
We are the ambassadors of an uprising.
Peaceful protesters.
In a rebellion against anyone
who has a fear of difference.
Difference.
Our demands are
equality,
dignity,
and the recognition of our shared humanity.
We will not stop
or accept anything less.
Today, our world is
more divided than ever.
And coming together has never been more urgent.
The revolution
is inclusion.
Find out more at jointherevolution.org.
You're listening to the Special Chronicles show right here on SpecialChronicles.com. Our guest on the, and I'm going to remember to unmute the guest this time, as sometimes I forget, is Shannon Maher, president of the of the Exelon Employee Resource Group Enabled, and the recruitment specialist at Exelon. I should have that a little bit better in front of me. Welcome back, Shannon.
Thanks.
And before the break, you were telling us, you were explaining to us a little bit about the Exelon Employee Resource Group, and we'll probably go a little over the 30-minute mark on this episode, but that's okay. We're trying not to go too much over because we're trying to keep this series somewhat short, kind of, sort of. So tell us, you mentioned about the Abilities Expo that ComEd holds, and how it's, I loved how you explained that the Abilities Expo is a small version of the nationwide Abilities Expo that we all, at least I say we all in the disability community have come to know. I know I went to the one in Chicago a few years ago, and so didn't plan doing a podcast, didn't plan writing a column about it, but I think it ended up being like one of the last columns I wrote in this small newspaper. Didn't even plan to, but anyways, I love that you describe it as a small version, because if for listeners that may not know, the nationwide the Abilities Expo that's nationwide in, I think it's even international, because I think they just added Toronto or someplace up in Canada. I think they added a location up there. So I guess now it's an international Abilities Expo. But what we have come to know it as a resource of a bunch of different resources and services that's across the nation, international as well. And that what you're doing with Enabled and your ComEd Enabled Abilities Expo is just local services, local resources and services. And if people want to get a glimpse, or at least a sound-seeing glimpse to what the Abilities Expo is, if they go to SpecialChronicles.com/EnergyForce, this series, we have two episodes that can give them a glimpse, a little sound-seeing glimpse of what your Enabled Abilities Expo is. But tell us a little bit more about the ComEd Abilities Expo and what kind of how this started. And
sure. So the Abilities Expo just kind of started from my colleague and current Vice President Kim Brown and I. We had attended the Abilities Expo for several years, representing Miss Wheelchair Illinois, and we thought, how can we bring this impact of this event kind of to our employee resource group Enabled on a smaller scale. So we decided to limit it to 20 vendors, and we had it at our Lincoln Center 2 building campus in Oak Brook Terrace. It's kind of one of the bigger offices that we have, and we had it on the first floor. And every vendor had a table represented with their resources and materials that they wanted to share. It was open to all ComEd employees internally. So it was an internal event. And at that building, we also house our call center, our customer care center, as we call it, on the third and fourth floor. So we hope that would draw a large group of employees, as well as we have Lincoln Center 1 and Lincoln Center 3 building not too far away. So that was kind of the epicenter of our Oak Brook Terrace headquarters of ComEd, and we thought that would be a perfect place to feature the event. So the Abilities Expo has kind of become a staple of Enabled and a yearly event for us. We've been able to do it 4 years in a row. We missed last year due to COVID, but if we're still virtual for next year, we'll have to find a way to possibly transition the event. But I think it's great just to, like you said, be able to represent local organizations such as we've had Special Olympics, Gigi's Playhouse. We've had I'm blanking on other groups that we've had.
8825 Leadership.
Yeah, 8825 Leadership, Disability in Chicagoland. So it's just kind of a wide variety of resources related to disability, as far as the type of disability or the resources available, employment focused, Special Olympics recreation focused, as well as just regular resources. You know, we had a Helping Hand Center. They are a live-in center for folks with disabilities, and they also have a specific autism school. So we tried to hit all the demographics of disability, as well as thinking about both the caretaker and the person with the disability, kind of what they would need. So we hope that the Abilities Expo is kind of a conversation starter for the employee to either help them or help themselves possibly care for a loved one with a disability in their home, or somebody that they might know. So it's really become a staple of our organization, and we hope to resume it in 2021. But it's just great to meet people and create that culture of inclusion at our company.
Awesome. And again, if our listeners want to get a sunseeing glimpse of what it is, just go to specialchronicles.com/EnergyForce, and you can find our ComEd Enabled Abilities Expo series. I think it's listed as, the episode titles I think are listed as, well, you just put it up on Spotify. It's listed as ComEd. Yeah. I forgot what this is. See, I've done hundreds of podcasts now. 13 years.
It's live. It's episode 357 and episode 333. The title is Live from ComEd Abilities Expo. It's on the ComEd EnergyForce podcast, or on your Special Chronicles podcast. And you're going to be so popular, you're not even gonna remember us one day. You have 42,000 listeners.
Yeah, I know.
I'm overwhelmed. I'm a little bit starstruck.
Well, and that's the 42,000 listeners is the average listeners that we have. So it's not that same. It's not the same number each month, but yeah. So let's move on. And as we said, Special Chronicles has been partnered with the ComEd EnergyForce Ambassador Program for now. This is our 4th year with the program. So for the past 3 years, and now 2021 is our 4th year. And we attended, as you said, the Enabled Abilities Expo for the past couple of years. Hence why you can go listen to episodes 357 and 333. I think that's what you said. And so to get a glimpse of what little something, it really, I think when people listen to those 2 episodes live from the ComEd Abilities Expo, they really get. So you described kind of all the different resources and services and organizations that, like Special Chronicles, have had booths or tables there. But when they listen to these episodes 333 and 357 live from ComEd Abilities Expo, they get I think it will give all listeners an idea of, I think we try to touch, I think throughout our time there, we ended up going around to all the tables. So I think we pretty much hit on each organization, each service or resource that is a part of the expo, I think.
Yes, you definitely hit everybody from what I can remember.
Well, yeah, and the first year that we were there, my former video producer was with me, but then I think last year was like, well, it was just me. So yeah, so it was, yeah. Anyways, let's. It was, so what I'm trying to say is, it's been an empowering experience for us to not only be involved with the ComEd EnergyForce program, but even to be at this Abilities Expo, and to be able to reach out to new listeners, and because like, just like all the different resources and services that you have at the Abilities Expo, that you have to connect with your employees, for us at Special Chronicles to be able to be there and to inform people about the programs and the podcasts and the columns and the blogs and the digital media content that we are producing here on SpecialChronicles.com. You never know who you're going to be touched or who is going to listen to or watch all content. And so to be able to connect with the Exelon ComEd employees it has been a empowering experience.
Thank you for the feedback, and that's why we do what we do. We hope that everyone has that same empowering experience.
Yeah. So let's move on and to talk about the plans for this year's enabled events. You mentioned in the beginning of the program today about let me first mention once again, our guest on the Special Chronicles program today is Shannon Maher, president of the Exelon Employee Resource Group Enabled. And you mentioned earlier on that you hosted and I along with Becky from Disabilities and a few other people took part in a virtual panel October 2020 for National Disability Employment Awareness Month. So tell us a little bit about this year's 2021 plans. I'm sure it'll probably be a lot of, again, virtual engagements, but I should say virtual events. Before you touch on that, I want to briefly mention, you said next year you hope the Abilities Expo will be in person, but if it's not, you have to kind of switch gears to like a virtual environment. We are recording / live streaming this part. Well, eventually when people watch it, it'll be live on StreamYard. And StreamYard they were just acquired by this service called Hopin, and Hopin does a lot of virtual events. And Hopin uses StreamYard to live stream, but basically what Hopin is, and I don't know if you've ever heard of Hopin, I just heard about it, but Hopin it uses StreamYard to have a live stream of a conference or a expo in this case, but imagine you were at a conference or an expo in person, and what Hopin is, it puts like you've got these different stages. They've got a photo booth option. They've got a expo kind of booth area where people can go in, but it's all done in this virtual environment. So
yeah, I think we should definitely connect. Maybe I can connect with you and with my team and see how we could possibly transition to a virtual format. And that's something that we would definitely be interested in, if this persists. And obviously, even if we're all vaccinated, I don't know if it will go back to normal 100%, as quickly as we want it to. So definitely I can connect with you
Yeah.
on those virtual platforms. That sounds great.
Yeah, I feel so. And back to what I said about that was a brief sidetrack, but kind of back in this year's enabled events, or I guess virtual events that you'll probably be doing this year in 2021. But tell us a little bit about this year's in enabled events. As it, well, I'm sure it's probably mostly internal that you're doing it with your employees. But tell us a little bit about if you're planning another virtual panel in October for National Disability Employment Awareness Month. And
yeah, so we hope to do more virtual panel events. We're kind of brainstorming a women in disability panel specifically that we want to do in the summer sometime, and kind of get some leading disability influencers, some female disability influencers that are, pertinent to our community, and we want to get them together for a conversation related to women with disabilities, as well as for October. I'm not quite sure what we have planned yet. I know we want to focus on it, kind of stretching out the events for a 1 week. So I'm hoping we can do like 3 events in the span of a work week, and maybe include some networking event, like a virtual happy hour of some kind with our membership, as well as doing like a main panel event like we did last year, and then possibly a virtual volunteer event to round out the week related to some kind of disability employment organization, whether it be EnergyForce or Disability In or another organization related to employment, just to help them and focus really on. October is a big month for us. That's kind of like our banner month of the year that we focus a lot of our efforts on. But that's something I'm kind of brainstorming and thinking about laying out for this year, kind of focusing it throughout the week and then doing a couple of events during the week. But as far as other events we're doing this year, we're going to continue with focusing on mental health awareness. And we've kind of transitioned all of our communications through Microsoft Teams instead of via membership. And that's kind of really helped us transition and kind of engage with one another more on, an instant message, and kind of we get notifications when different channels or posts are made on our Teams page. So we've created a channel for our mental health awareness track, and in that we've done the desk exercise and the burnout event that I talked about earlier, as well as we feature our monthly newsletter every month highlighting the disability awareness months for that month, as well as a feature article that Carolyn on my team writes about whatever we're focusing on that month or whatever events we have coming up in the future. So we've been able to do a lot and also connect with the other enabled chapters and enabled leadership chapters throughout the company to kind of brainstorm together on what we're doing and share what we're doing with the other chapters and kind of learn from each other during this time. So I think if we continue doing that, we'll stay connected.
Awesome. And we mentioned disability in a bunch in this episode, and in the show notes, if people click on the link below, which should be SpecialChronicles.com/podcast323. Sorry, I was looking up on the episode. SpecialChronicles.com/podcast323 for this episode. But if you in the show notes, we put a link to disability in, and which is, I just discovered it 2 years ago, thanks to Special Olympics International. One of the staff invited me to go along with when it was here in Chicago, which was, I think, just before the world shut down. Just before the world shut down, I think it happened like 7 months before the world shut down. Anyways, before we get into disability and our mutual connection with how Awesome. I don't know if anybody from Disability In is going to be listening to this episode, but maybe if we tag them on Twitter, then maybe somebody at Disability In will listen to this episode. And they'll hear us talk about how awesome their organization is and the Disability Equality Index that they put out.
Mm-hmm.
I know United with my cup. United Airlines, I know has for a number of years has they always score 100% on the Disability Equality Index. And so before we get into that, tell us briefly about the future vision of I was going to say EnergyForce, but let's just the future vision of Exelon's Employee Resource Group Enabled. And you mentioned before you mentioned backstage before we went on air about that a big focus of the future vision of the Enabled Employee Resource Group at Exelon is recruitment of disability and disability and is kind of pulled into this conversation. So tell us a little bit about the future vision of Enabled's Employee Resource Group, as well as how recruitment of disability and and how this all kind of comes together with your future vision.
Sure. Yeah. So this is one of my favorite topics. I became involved in Disability In the fall of 2014 when I first started working for ComEd, and I just was astounded by the fact that there's an organization that exists related to disability inclusion in the workplace. I thought it was something that could never really be addressed, and I didn't really know how I fit in the workplace really until I came across that community, and we have recently become a corporate partner of Disability In. And Disability In, for those of you who are not aware, is really a leading organization for disability inclusion in the workplace. And they have local chapters regionally, and then they also have an annual national conference, which I've had the opportunity to attend a couple of times. I know you were in Chicago in 2019, and it's just a great way to come together to learn from different panelists. All panelists have acknowledged and self-identified as having a disability, and it's just a great way to learn different HR practices, recruitment practices as it relates to disability. They have different tracks as part of the conference. They have a workplace track, a supply chain track, and other tracks related to the focus of your industry or what you're hoping to get out of the conference. So it was from attending those conferences and networking with people at Disability In that I just knew that Exelon ComEd had to be a part of this organization. So we formally made our commitment in November of 2020 to commit to the corporate partnership level of Disability In, and that allows us the resource to take the Disability Equality Index. So we just submitted that for this year, as well as just getting all the resources that disability has already at their fingertips, such as pre-recorded webinars, live webinars related to disability topics that we could use for internal for our company, as well as for our resource group Enabled. So this kind of spawned out of my involvement with Disability In 2014, and I brought it to Enabled and really told my group that this is something I want to focus on, during the year of 2020. We made it a main focus of 2020, and we achieved our goal of being a corporate partner in Disability In, and I'm excited to see how this partnership develops as we continue throughout 2021. I wanted to mention that we also have committed to hiring people from the Disability In Next Gen Leaders program, and what that is basically a database of over 400 young professionals or current college students who are identifying as having a disability and looking for an internship or their first job out of college. So we have, we're excited to be welcoming a few students from the Disability In Next Gen Leader program for our Exelon in Summer Internship program this summer. And we're just excited to see, the future of the relationship with Disability In and how this is translating with our commitment to diversity, equity, inclusion.
Awesome, man. Once again, you're watching the video, for this episode, I put the link down below, disabilityin.org. And I want to briefly kind of add on to what you said about the conference. I loved about how accessible their conference is. And I know hopefully all of you listening, hopefully you all, when they go back to having an in-person conference, depending on what city it's in, hopefully you, depending on if you're listening and you can maybe talk with your organization or your company, and you can go and attend the Disability conference, because they always had a sign language interpreter. They had big monitors up, and I forgot one of the nights they've got a big dinner where they give I think it's called Disability Awards. Yeah. Give out, which was a long evening, but and now that this was 2 years ago, I can now say it on air. At the time, I couldn't say, but they had a musical performance, and we weren't allowed to record any video on our phones or take any pictures, even though people will. But I don't know if you remember from 2 years ago, the America's Got Talent, I think. I don't watch those award shows. Those reality shows. I don't watch any reality show. But the guy with autism who's also blind, but he's a fantastic singer. I forgot his name.
You're talking about, but yeah, I don't know his name either.
I forgot his name. Anyways, maybe if you're listening or you're watching right now, go on YouTube and put in the comments for this episode and tell us. But anyways, the point was, because he was a part of the show, they actually got him to perform at the Disability Awards at the Disability In Conference. So that was pretty neat to be able to. I wish I could have recorded it, but it was neat to be able to see it, to see him perform in person at the conference. With that, and this is going to be a little longer of an episode because we're at about 15 minutes, so we'll try to kind of come to a close pretty soon. But I can take that. Take that away. Any plugs on social media or special initiatives that you'd like to promote on either ComEd or the EnergyForce Ambassador Program or Enabled?
Yeah, definitely check out the links you've been providing on the screen. Also, if you're interested in career opportunities at Exelon ComEd, please check out our website, exeloncorp.com/careers. You can view our company involvement with disability recruitment, as well as our diversity, equity, and inclusion department, and what we're doing as an organization to stay connected to the community. And it's really an exciting time to be a part of the energy industry. And all of our career opportunities are posted there company-wide. ComEd is our electric utility based in Chicago area. And also Enabled is an internal employee resource group, but if you're interested in, hosting an event or participating, definitely don't hesitate to reach out to Daniel. He can share my contact information. But yeah, thank you so much for the opportunity.
Awesome. And once again, for our podcast listeners, if you're not watching the video on YouTube or Facebook or Twitter Live, we'll mention it on air for people who might be listening to us as an audio podcast on Apple Podcasts or iHeartRadio or wherever you get your podcasts. But if people go to, once again, it's exeloncorp.com/careers. That's exeloncorp.com/careers. Can they find links on there to Exelon's commitment to disability and inclusion and diversity? And
yes, you can learn all about our company, our vision and mission statement, as well as our company commitment to disability inclusion is on there in our diversity and inclusion tab. So that's really the central hub of our company. And check us out if you're interested. And then also, if you're interested in applying for the ComEd Energy Workforce Ambassador Program, Daniel can tell you more about the application process, but that's on our website as well, ComEd.com/EnergyForce.
Yes, ComEd.com/EnergyForce. All your listeners can go meet us, ambassadors, but also I think it's open the second half of the year in the fall or winter of 2021. It will be open for next year, but your team, I don't know if it's your team, but some team at the Malcolm team, maybe it's that team. Some team at ComEd will put the application up. I believe the second half of the year, but you can just go to ComEd.com/EnergyForce. We also put links to that on SpecialChronicles.com/EnergyForce for this /ComEd for this. But all the links will be in the show notes on SpecialChronicles.com. Also, just want to mention, if you want to follow me on social media at Podmandan, PODMANDAN at Podmandan, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, all the places you can find. And if you have any feedback, you can send us feedback at SpecialChronicles.com, as well as if you have any comments for Shannon or want to get involved, just email feedback at SpecialChronicles.com, and I can forward that on to you, Shannon. One final note, SpecialChronicles.com is where you can go to connect with us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, Vimeo, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, newsletter, and just go to SpecialChronicles.com to get in touch with us at Special Chronicles. Once again, at the $250 gift level to this podcast, Tim Shriver will send you a free autographed copy of his new book, The Call to Unite, Voices of Hope and Awakening. Once again, at the $250 gift level, simply go to SpecialChronicles.com/give or text give to 50 to 833-953-2598, and you can make that $250 gift level to this podcast. And right before we come to a close, a question I usually end conversations with is what does inclusion mean to you? So I'm going to ask you the same thing. What does inclusion mean to you?
Inclusion means to me that everyone has a seat at the table, everyone's voice is being heard, and everyone has a chance to succeed.
Awesome. And as we come to a close, our guest has been Shannon Maher, President of Exelon's Employee Resource Group Enabled and Recruiting Program Specialist at Exelon. It's been a joy having you on, Shannon. And any final thoughts on your overall time here today on Special Chronicles that you'd like to share with our listeners?
Thank you, Daniel. Thank you, listeners, for tuning in. It's been really fun being here. I'm excited to be here today, and anytime you want me to come back, let me know. I'd be happy to join you again. Just excited to see what's involved in the future of Enabled and ComEd. Check us out at the information that Daniel provided, and thank you so much. Stay safe.
Yep, and all the links that Shannon that you mentioned, I should say for the listener, all the links that Shannon mentioned will be in the show notes below. Just go on to SpecialChronicles.com/podcast423, and you can find all the links to that Shannon mentioned. And stay tuned next week and the next 2.5 months, or actually, people are going to hear this the end of April, right? Last week of April. So we've got 2 more months, all of May and all of June. We have weekly conversations series, weekly podcast conversation series with 9 of my fellow ComEd EnergyForce ambassadors. So stay tuned, stay subscribed to the Special Chronicles show or ComEd EnergyForce series, because we've got tons more on our EnergyForce conversation series in the next 2 months. So you want to make sure to stay subscribed or follow us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, or wherever you get your podcasts, and subscribe to our newsletter on SpecialChronicles.com as well. And until next week, we will you won't be here, Shannon, but I will be here. The guests won't be here. Maybe in the future, but like not next. Yeah.
I know what you mean.
I'm trying to say, I will see you next week. And it's been a joy having you on, Shannon.
Thanks, everyone.
And until then, we'll talk to you next. Oh, we'll talk to you next week right here on the Special Chronicles show on SpecialChronicles.com. Support for Special. Oh, we'll talk to you next week on SpecialChronicles.com. Until next week, remember, choose to include
Special Chronicles, giving respect and a voice to people with special needs.